today's live session. If you are just joining me, happy Monday. I hope you had a fantastic weekend. Today is Q&A Monday, as it always is with me. And today we're talking about Rare Disease Awareness Day, which is tomorrow actually, but since my session is today, we're gonna start the day early. There will be a blog article being posted by tomorrow for Rare Disease Awareness Day. So I'll get a link put in the comments today for that. If you're joining me today and you have a rare disease or suspect you may have a rare disease, please post a comment and share. Part of the reason I love doing these awareness days is it gives you a chance to not only create awareness around the day, some of the stigmas, talk about treatments, how to take care of your symptoms at home. But I like to give you recognition through the exposure on these lives to let others know how you are dealing and managing perhaps some symptoms. If you are a Life Pro member and you have a rare disease, you probably already know that there's a lot of things that you can do for your own self-care, not only that are generally a lot less invasive than traditional treatments, but generally, what I find with home therapies, you have the ability to be more consistent. If you're dealing with pain, fatigue, there's a whole range of symptoms that you might be dealing with if you have a rare disease. And sometimes it's not so much the label on your forehead that you have. It's the symptoms that you're dealing with, because they can be not only treated universally, but they can be, a lot of different conditions can have similar symptoms. And this leads into, when you're dealing with a rare disease, often a misdiagnosis, inadequate or inappropriate treatments, just because perhaps your care provider or the person that you're dealing with is unfamiliar with the condition. That there's a lot out there. We're going to go to a few stats here. It's really no one's fault. A rare disorder is rare, and it doesn't mean that every doctor or therapist that you're dealing with out there is going to be completely versed on every condition out there. So the internet lays the way for certainly some more tools, but whether a condition has been identified or not really does limit your ability to try and find real-time information, especially if you don't know what it's even called or that you have a rare condition. So a rare disease is also referred to as a rare disorder. And in the United States, it is a disease that affects fewer than 200,000 people. It is estimated that there is somewhere between 6,000 and 7,000 rare diseases, with about 25 to 30 million Americans living with a rare disease. The cause for rare diseases is often unknown. There's a lot of assumptions. There's some similarities that lead us to believe it may be due to a change in a person's genes or their chromosomes. Some feel there's hereditary markers. Really depends on the disease that you're dealing with and how much research has been explored. Unfortunately, on the research side, when you're dealing with a rare disease, they don't tend to get the funding simply because a large, vast majority of the population are not dealing with the condition. If you're dealing with something like cancer or diabetes, heart disease, where there's a much, much larger percentage of the population affected, the research money tends to flow that way as well. People with a rare disease are not any less deserving of getting access to effective and affordable treatments. And part of what I want to talk about today is certainly some ideas for you to start thinking about in your own care at home. Because as I said, the big point, symptoms are universal. So just because you have a rare disease does not mean that you are not entitled to access treatments and in an affordable fashion. But what I will say, in my experience with dealing with a number of rare diseases, for those of you that might be joining me from one of my groups, lipedema, as an example, is considered to be a rare condition. And some of the research, it finally does have a standard of care outlined a couple of years ago. But it's believed that, maybe 9 or 1 in 10 or 1 in 11 women actually have this condition. So, is it really rare, or are we just unaware? That's one thing I find myself saying commonly when I'm talking about rare diseases. Is it rare, or are we just unaware? So rare diseases, I couldn't name the 6,000 or 7,000 that have been identified, and I'm sure there are thousands more yet to be determined. But some of the common things when you're dealing with a rare disease are some of the common things that you're dealing with other diseases. Things like pain, swelling, fatigue, poor circulation and lymph movement, weakness, poor sleep, sensitivity issues, restless legs. All of these things are symptoms, and a lot of symptoms can be addressed and managed just through activity and some alternative therapies. So it's pretty rare when you are dealing with health issues that your doctor or your care provider is going to say, do absolutely nothing, sit still, and don't move. That's pretty rare. Usually just getting some light movement, whether it's walking, whether it's stretching, could be self massage. There's lots of different ways that we can do things like boost our circulation and our lymph, which is going to help with secondary symptoms like swelling. Getting more oxygen flowing through your veins is going to help with the fatigue and stamina. So a lot of times you can manage these symptoms, whether you have a diagnosis or not. And in a lot of cases, especially in a couple of my groups, not everybody has a diagnosis, but does that mean that you should stop seeking solutions for the symptoms that you're experiencing? You may go your whole life without a diagnosis. I encourage you to take control of your self-care. There's a lot of sessions that we've done with Life Pro with all kinds of conditions. And if there's a condition that you'd like us to do a session on, or something that you'd like us to lay some particular focus on, please ensure that you let us know that. So a couple things I want to talk about today, and one of the big therapies that I am very excited about, of course, is vibration plates. Vibration plates, why are they good for rare diseases? Vibration plates offer a very low impact. And don't think of a vibration plate as equipment or some type of treatment on its own. Vibration plate as an environment that makes exercises, stretches, whatever positions you're performing on it effective in benefits in less time and with less effort on your part. So one of the big reasons that they are advantageous is you can get things moving very easily, even mimic going for a walk, where sometimes, those types of activities may or may not be effective for you personally. And what I mean by that is perhaps exercise is just too challenging. Maybe it hurts. Maybe you lack environment. Getting into the feed here, I want to drop you guys. The first link I'm dropping is just link to vibration plates. Unaware most probably. Hi, Irene. I'm glad to see some comments coming through here. It's good to know that you have lipedema, and it is one of the rare diseases that I talk about in our group. Lipedema, sometimes gets mixed up with lymphedema, which is a much more commonly known condition, but many people dealing with lipedema have lymphedema and vice versa. So whatever the primary diagnosis is, very commonly when you're dealing with a rare disease, you don't just have one thing. So maybe it's rheumatoid arthritis. Maybe you're dealing with lupus. There's all kinds of diagnoses out there, but sometimes you're dealing with another condition you may be completely aware of. So I'm going to step a little bit away and I'm going to move over to the vibration plate. And this is very similar. Last week we did a session on epilepsy. Today, a lot of sometimes what you're doing on a vibration plate isn't necessarily a different routine for a different condition. It's always more about what you as an individual are physically able to do, what you're capable of, what your deficiencies are, what your weaknesses are. So if you've never used a vibration plate before, or you bought one thinking it could help your condition and it's still sitting in the box, I encourage you to take it out of the box and experiment with it. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised, regardless of how severe your symptoms may be. If your doctor or care provider has okayed you for activity and you're to be walking or doing aquasize or those types of activities, you're absolutely fine to be using a vibration plate unless other contraindications exist, which I will get back to when I get a little closer to the camera. But if you're fearful, if you're dealing with a lot of pain, fatigue, instability, just sitting in a chair, a good bar height stool gets you a little bit higher with a good 90-degree angle in your legs. And my feet are about hip width apart. Just see how it feels moving the legs. This is a very basic way just to get some lymph and some circulation going in the lower extremities. If you are able to stand on the plate, keep the feet no more than hip width apart. By standing on the plate, I will assume that you are able to bear weight. If you're in a recent injury or a post-surgery situation, you may not quite be ready to be doing weight-bearing exercises. Same rule applies. This is just an environment that makes exercise easy to a degree. Even just standing on the floor and bearing your own body weight is more exercise than sitting on the chair at your kitchen table or sitting on the sofa. So just by standing on the plate and beginning to get more total body movement, more circulation, more lymph. If you're finding when you're starting on your plate, it's a little too scary or a little too aggressive in how strong the movement feels, you are always in control. Bring your feet closer to the center. Wider is more movement. Closer is less movement. And all of my coachings are always in oscillating movement. Oscillating mimics how we walk. It's the most researched. It's the most functional. I've covered that in many sessions. But more importantly, every single one of Life Pro's vibration plates offers oscillating. So for those of you that have other movement styles and want to ask me, could I do it in pulsating or lateral or P3 or P4? Absolutely, you can. The moves themselves are kind of universal. What other features or settings you may have with your vibration plate are simply just a preference. One setting, in my opinion, is not better for certain conditions. Again, just like what you can do on the plate, settings are very much a universal thing. It depends on how it feels to you, what your preference is. If you're wanting to get stronger and you're not a big exercise guru, also dual purpose. Some of the exercises that you may be doing for rare diseases would be things like building up leg strength, which is a common thing for a lot of conditions, to be honest with you. But building up leg strength can very simply be just challenging the muscles in your leg and making the position of standing a little bit more challenging by bending a little bit deeper. And you'll notice the deeper you bend, the less vibration you feel up. The taller you stand, the more you feel it move up towards the head. The lower you bend, the more you'll feel it suppress into the legs, and they're kind of picking up the action. So you're going to feel more pressure, if you will, or fatigue building on the quads in this fashion. And this is probably a very good starting point for many of you. Not everyone's going to be able to go deeper right off the bat. If you're not doing this exercise now, many of you might be dealing with hypermobility, loose connective tissue conditions, just arthritis, pain, and swelling. There's lots of reasons that getting low into a squat is a challenge. It's usually related to lack of flexibility in the ankles, believe it or not. So if you can't get deep in your squat, very commonly it'll feel like you're shifting, or a lot of people will say, well, I just feel it in my shins or my knees. The body is very lazy. It's not going to put out a calorie more than it has to for any one exercise. So the first thing it does on a vibration plate, the heel is the point of contact. If you lift up one heel, you'll feel that it's really not moving up past the ankle joint. If you put the heel back down, you'll feel that's the connection and the vibrations moving further up through the body. So your body likes to shift the weight to the toes or even lift the heels off slightly because it makes it easier. So if you're feeling it too much in the knees or the shins, but not the rest of the body, you've probably shifted your weight without realizing. And that's a common thing if you're going lower than your range of motion allows. We have a tendency when we get really low to come up on the toes. Well, we're supposed to be able to do that flat-footed, but many of us, again, have lost range of motion, flexibility. There's different reasons that I know I'm going to hit my bum on the chair. I have it too close. So that's one really basic way to just get some lymph and some circulation going, which is going to be a universal way to treat a lot of symptoms that I mentioned a little bit earlier, and I will get back to here shortly. Another really great reason to consider a vibration plate, especially if you are supposed to be, and I use the word supposed to be, if we did everything that we're supposed to be doing in the course of a day, we wouldn't need sessions with Life Pro to teach us how to fix our problems. Life gets in the way, and sometimes pain, swelling, and symptoms do. So sometimes the exercise piece, not the therapy, the massage, the saunas, whatever you might be using on that front, but the exercise piece, if you weren't a big exercise guru before you figured out you had a rare disease, you probably didn't turn into one. And exercise as a word, I kind of don't like it. It's very demotivating. It's a workout has the word work in it. So, I prefer to use things like get active, get moving. And I think some of the things that you really need to focus on more than what you're doing is just consistently start having a relationship with your vibration plate, especially if you have one now and it's collecting dust. The best thing that you can do is just start getting that lymph and circulation going. It will alleviate a lot of symptoms, the swelling, aches and pains. It's going to oxygenate the blood. And a lot of my clients that are dealing with severe symptoms use it quite frequently throughout the course of the day, but in very short, purposeful little spot treatments. So maybe 2 to 3 minutes just to build some circulation, start combating swelling and stiffness long before you even get into a big routine, if you will. So give yourself a week or two if you're just starting or you're just returning back to your vibration plate for the first time and you're dealing with a rare disease or if you think you're dealing with something and you can't get a diagnosis, it might be a rare disease. For those of you that are joining me, I will get to questions here shortly. If you have a rare disease, I want you to shout it out, because part of what tomorrow Rare Disease Awareness Day is about bringing awareness to some of the rare diseases out there. So maybe if you populate the comments here with your disease, we'll realize things aren't so rare. And if you do have something that you have a specific question on, please post it and tag me at Debbie, especially if you're watching this after the live today. And I'll be happy to get back to you. I'm going to take a quick look at questions. Okay, so hello, Kim from Campbell River. Kim has a rare disease, Derkham's disease. You guys have probably seen Kim doing her thing on the Life Pro page from time to time. Kim is one of my ever so willing guinea pigs and has been more than willing to experiment with a number of the therapies that Life Pro provides. She has a diagnosis. Derkham's disease does not exist in our country of Canada. And I don't know that it actually has a standard of care in the US, but it has been acknowledged as a rare disease, and access to, what a treatment plan looks like, again, isn't a universal thing, even if it was identified. But, Kim having Derkham's disease, even within my group, a lot of folks have Derkham's disease or lipedema, and there's just so many co-conditions, but the symptoms are universal. So things like pain, Derkham's disease develops these fatty little nodules called lymphomas, and they can be very, very painful. If you've got a couple of those on your butt or your feet, it impedes your ability to just go about your day. So, some of them are dealing with weight. Some of them are dealing with retention of fluids. So there's even within the rare disease category, there's a lot of differences between the individuals diagnosed. It's still very much an individual process addressing your care and what works best for you. Sometimes you're going to have to experiment even with some of the basic stuff that I show you to see what feels best for your needs. Irene is from New Zealand. Hi, sweetie. Nice to see you. She has primary lymphedema and lipedema, Thank you for shouting out that example. So, for example, she has been diagnosed with lymphedema, which is a much more common condition, but she also has lipedema, which has different symptoms, different issues going on there. And most are unaware. So thank you for sharing that, Irene. I've done a few blog articles for Life Pro on lipedema, and I've certainly done some sessions on lipedema and Derkham's disease. But yes, it's much more common. And I will point out in certain parts of the world that some conditions are even spelt differently. So, when you don't know what you have, I get a lot of grief in my one group, which is called Vibration for Fat Disorders. And a lot of you that have diagnosis get upset with me that I don't call it loose connective tissue disorder or some of the other more technical terms. But when you're on the internet and you have these symptoms and they just don't fit with the diagnosis that is being offered, or in some cases being forced down your throat, and you're seeking for answers, it's how you describe how you're feeling. In fat disorders or painful fat or problem with my fat is usually more easily found than some of the conditions names. So lipedema is one of those examples. It's spelled Lipedema in the Western world, but there's an O in the middle if you're dealing with the UK or the New Zealand, Australia parts of the world. So it gets confusing even sometimes within the community. So we need to get some awareness going and a lot more. I don't know if I pointed this out for those of you. This was a shirt being sold at our local market here in town, Daphne's. We're rooting for each other. And there's so many different colored ribbons and awareness days that, sometimes when you're dealing with something rare, it's not as easily acknowledged. And just because someone has a rare disease does not mean that you are any less deserving of treatment or access to affordable treatments than those dealing with more common disease. The downside of it, unfortunately, when you are dealing with a rare disease, is there's typically not going to be as much research around it. I know it's not right, but when you're dealing with a condition that a very small percentage of the population is dealing with in comparison to something like heart disease or diabetes, where much, much more of the population is prevalent in presenting these diseases, obviously there's going to be a little bit more effort towards those conditions on the research side. But you've got to dig your own heels in. Just because research exists, I got a lot of people dealing with diabetes, and the cookie cutter standard of care doesn't work for them either. So it still gets back to you individually and your symptoms. And you've got to do some experimenting. There's so many wonderful tools out there that Life Pro can provide. Moving on from vibration plates, another therapy I want to talk about, I'm not going to turn this big bad boy on, but is light therapy. Now, light therapy has expanded exponentially in the Life Pro world. There is a red light or visual light, I will refer to it as a category. There's also a tab just devoted to saunas. Saunas, just a sauna typically has infrared, which is non-visible light. Infrared, near or far, whatever you're dealing with. When you're sitting in your vehicle, certain times of the year, you can feel that warmth of the sun hugging you as it comes through the windshield. Whereas if you step outside of your car, it's like freezing cold. Infrared is that warm heat that you feel. Whereas the red, the blue, the amber, some of the other light therapies, the visual spectrums, they're just in a different spectrum. If we take the sunlight and we break it into that rainbow of beautiful colors, the majority of what we're talking about in the light therapies are the visual lights. The saunas, infrared, the dome model does have infrared built in, but the blankets, the Rejuva wraps, those ones where you're getting the warmth, the heat is infrared. So there's a couple of differences, but they're all considered light therapies. Light therapies are going to be a valuable tool addressing, again, a number of things. Perhaps you are so below baseline that activity right now is just not an option. You're physically unable to get out of bed and even put your feet on the floor. So the nice thing about light therapies is they can be a hands-off option. So the panel being a bigger model, there's also the infrared lamp. There's all kinds of smaller tools. therapies that can be just cast, so the red light's like shining upon your body and treating those areas of pain. The visual lights are going to do a couple of different things. So your red lights are going to treat the skin surface if you're dealing with lesions, psoriasis, you've got bruises, skin surface conditions. On the flip side, there's beauty applications, the wrinkles, the rosacea, all those visual things. But if you're dealing with skin surface conditions and exercise isn't possible, sometimes, like I said, maybe you're dealing with spurs in your feet, or you've got open sores, and just physically moving your body is not an option until you heal a bit. Red light is going to expedite the healing process. So if you are dealing with skin conditions, it does a really, really good job of expediting the healing process while alleviating pain. Infrared is going to go a little bit lower, deeper below the skin surface. So if it's joint pain, muscular pain, lymphatic vessels, those types of things, you're going to find, even maybe using a combination of tools that offer red and infrared to give you some options. One of the downsides of rare diseases and some of the ones that I work with is, guess what? You have good days and bad days. Sometimes your symptoms change. So, there's never going to be one perfect therapy tool to cover all of your needs. But I like to speak in generalities, and what I would suggest is you take a little closer look at some of the products within Life Pros collections to see what might fit not only your lifestyle, but the area that you're trying to treat. What are you treating regularly? Your budget, all of those things come into play. And there's two types of what I refer to light therapies. There's high intensity and low intensity. High intensity are going to be things like your torches, the BioCure, the little pocket-sized ones that are generally 3 to 5 minutes in recommended treatment time. They're designed for a smaller area. You need relief right now. You don't have a whole lot of time. Maybe you're a therapist and you just want to pre-treat an area before you do other things. You want to take it with you on the go to treat symptoms throughout the day. High-intensity tools like any of the torches are ideal for that, but maybe they're not the best choice for treating like a thigh. So a lot of people will say, well, Deb, I've got a torch. Can I use it to treat my restless leg? We know that red light is good at treating restless legs, but it's sometimes it's matching the right tool for the outcome you're looking for. So yes, in theory, you can use any of your red light therapies to treat, anything on your body, but it would take a long time to use the torch to treat your thighs, whereas something like the panel is going to cast a broader or a larger signature on your body, and you don't have to physically hang on to it. Sometimes when you're dealing with rare diseases or other conditions, fatigue in the hands or grip strength or issues. And so, considering something hands-free, like the panels, and some of the other red light tools are going to also fall into the more longer treatment times. Weight loss is another one that would be more of a lower intensity. You're using the red light therapy for a longer period of time. So, 10 to 30 minutes, let's say. So the tools that are more than 5 minutes, usually presets anywhere from 10, 20, 30 minutes. Those are your low intensities. You want to give your body longer exposure time. You're doing healing. We're trying to burn calories. Whereas the torch, the low intensities are going to be more that spot treatment. You need relief right now, maybe joint pain. Perhaps you have a lesion you're wanting to treat multiple times a day. So these are all just things to consider when you're looking at light therapies. Specifically, infrareds, it depends on you. If you have very, very poor mobility, you might enjoy some of the blanket styles or the dome, where you can lay your body down on your bed or on the sofa, and you're laying in an inclined position, just to get everything relaxed. For those of you that are comfortable sitting, you want a little bit, you've got a little bit more room to facilitate a box sauna is a good option to consider. Budget depending. What I do love about Life Pros infrared therapies is you do not need to be a multimillionaire and have a massive home to get into an infrared sauna. We used to think of a sauna being that box with the door It's awesome for those of you that have the ability to get into that type of a technology, but not everyone does. Life Pro's got the full spectrum. So you've got the blankets that are more than affordable, right up to the box sauna. Again, there's never one perfect sauna for every situation, for every application. Things to consider. Are you using it at home regularly? Does your budget allow? Does the space? Some of the pros, sometimes less is more. What I do like about the blankets and the Rejuva wrap is they're portable. So if you travel lots, you've got a second home or a cabin, and you like to use saunas, kind of one of those things I like to use more regularly. So I'm probably doing it 2 to 3 times a week. I can't take my box sauna with me. I could take my dome sauna with me, but it's a little bit more cumbersome. But yeah, for those of you that travel, you like the heat, you know the benefits of what infrared offers for your conditions. I think you would really benefit from taking a look at some of the blanket styles just for their portability, affordability, and they just give you another option. Sometimes when you're, like I say, dealing with a rare condition, things change and you need to change your approach in how you're caring for your symptoms. Okay, back to a few more questions here. Irene is saying most are unaware. I'm sure that is the case. I did post a link to vibration plates. Cynthia, hi Cynthia, how are you? The Life Pro vibration plate has been very helpful in managing my lymphedema. Sorry, I've been talking too much. My lips are chapped. I do a lot of different exercises and stretches every day while on the plate. So thank you, Cynthia, for sharing that. That speaks to what I was speaking about early on in the session. A vibration plate is nothing more than an environment that makes your floor-based exercise positions that you're doing or supposed to be doing much easier with less impact. You're gonna get more benefit in less time. And if you're dealing with things like achy joints and fatigue and inflammation, the longer you exercise, the more you spend time doing activities, the more you can aggravate troublesome joints. So the beauty of a vibration machine is it can get you to fatigue faster if you're pushing yourself in your exercise positions, which is going to reduce time on the joint. So you can get more effective activity into those muscles and ligaments and tendons, and get to fatigue faster without the time on the joints. So I think you're going to find you might start seeing some improvement in those areas. And if you are dealing with joint pain in particular, keep your position static. You don't need to move up and down. And if you do feel comfortable moving up and down, I recommend doing it very slow, very controlled movements. But a lot of time it's the movement or incorrect technique that causes us issues with our arthritis or those type of things. So sometimes just getting into a good position and holding still until you fatigue is more effective in not only keeping your technique, but you're going to find you're going to fatigue faster. The body likes to move and it doesn't like not having the ability to cheat and do it its own way. So try holding static poses if you're starting out. Facebook user uses plate 2 times a day, 4 days a week. Love it. Facebook user says lipomas, and I'm probably saying it wrong, but just because you have a lump under your skin and it's painful, it doesn't mean it's other things. It's a very common condition with Derkham's disease, lipedema, to have these little fatty lumps that may or may not be painful. And a vibration plate is going to stimulate and bring circulation to the area, but specific to lipomas, something we're using in the group, I'm sure many of you have seen one of these or own one, but is a massage gun. A massage gun is a great way, kind of think of it like a pocket-sized vibration plate to target certain areas. And if you're using a vibration gun to target a lymphoma, a tight muscle, just a soreness in your area, let the gun do the work. Just bring it up to like a mid-speed. I've covered this in a few sessions, but I always love pointing this out. The slow speed, and I always talk about the slow speeds on a vibration machine being the choppy, kind of hammering ones. Well, the same is true on your vibration gun. So bring your speed up to like a mid-range and just let the gun skim the surface. Don't apply a whole lot of pressure. If you apply pressure, see how it could hurt, especially if you've got tenderness, you're prone to bruising, you got lots of swelling. So just see how it's barely skimming the surface of my skin, and you will find it's going to just get circulation to that localized area. If you're dealing with a lipoma, maybe circle it, work around it, start softening up the tissue around the area. You probably got some muscle tension and those type of things. When you're dealing with pain, guess what? Your muscles get tense. Pain causes pain, both mentally and physically, and it's very, very exhausting. Pain can drain your energy. So the sooner you can start just getting rid of the pain, the more exercise and stretching and some of these other things might become more possible. Cynthia, a rare disease that runs in my mom's family is hereditary cardiac amyloiditis. Very underdiagnosed and is physically debilitating. I have heard of it, but I'm obviously not so good at pronouncing it. Vibration plates and a lot of the things that could boost circulation are things to consider when you are dealing with very, very debilitating pain, or you're at a point where your body is just structurally so weak because you've been unable to be active. The red lights, using a vibration plate in a seated position is a good way to not only getting circulation and lymph going, not only alleviates pain, but if you're feeling better, it does a lot for the mental health too. It can be very, very disheartening, and we beat ourselves up thinking it's something we've done, or even sometimes, I hate to say it, our care providers lead us to believe that, no, this is what you have, or you can even get bullied into a diagnosis. I've seen it 1,000 times. If it's not making sense, keep seeking answers. The same reason I use the word fat in my advocacy group in Canada. Thank you for putting, that was my rant about why my group is called Fat Disorders. JC Ann says, hi, Debbie, love your t-shirt. Isn't it awesome? Yes, a local group, their daughters came up with this design, and I'm so dying for garden seasoning to start. When you're dealing with a rare disease or any condition, nutrient-dense food in combination with your activities, I can't say it enough. I do not specialize in the food, but it is something that whether you're losing weight, whether you're dealing with a condition, sometimes it's what we're putting into our mouth that is causing some of these symptoms or creating some of these conditions even long-term over years and years and years. So it's an area that you should lay some particular interest into. And there's lots of groups out there that can give you good advice on that if you're dealing with struggling with the food piece, because most of us do. There's no money in rare. Isn't that the truth? I was speaking earlier about research. If you are dealing with a rare condition, and there's not very many people dealing with it, usually the funding trail is very similar. A lot of the diseases that are much more prominent obviously get a little bit more attention because there's just so many people dealing with them. As I said earlier, the cause of rare diseases is unknown. Often they can be due to changes in a person's genes, their chromosomes, can be genetic. You can spend your whole life trying to figure out what you have and where it came from. I suggest you spend a little bit more time researching your symptoms and how to manage them, and try some of the tools that you may have. Reach out to me, tag at Debbie if you have something that just doesn't fit. A lot of times you can manage symptoms and live a perfectly normal life without having a diagnosis. Many, many, many people in my groups do not have a diagnosis, and they are managing their conditions and living better lives for it. So don't wait. Just because you get a diagnosis doesn't necessarily mean the level of care is going to improve. Take control of that. Take charge of your health and start moving and feeling better. I hope that today has inspired you a little bit. If you haven't been using your vibration plate or your red light therapy or your infrared sauna or your compression garments, and they've been collecting dust, you bought them for a reason. Whether it's to manage your rare disease or you're just achy and not very active, there's lots of ways you can start moving and feeling better today. So tomorrow is Rare Disease Day. The last day of February every month celebrates Rare Disease Day. What they're recommending is you go out and share hashtag Rare Disease Day. If you've got one, get out there and create some awareness, share what your disease is. Maybe there's someone out there that can identify with you, and you can be a path that leads them to a diagnosis, or at least a suspected one. So share and be aware, and know that Life Pro and I care. That just came to me. Have a great Monday, you guys. We will see you next week with something new and exciting. Sorry for the technical delay. I will always show up at some point. And for those of you that are joining me after the fact, If you do have questions, please tag at Debbie with a Y, and I'll be happy to get back to those as as a comment when I get a chance to get back to you. Have a great rest of your week. Don't work too hard, and start taking care of yourself at home, and share the awareness tomorrow on Rare Disease Day. Love you too, Irene. Happy rest of your week in New Zealand. And thank you, everyone else who joined me today for Rare Disease Awareness Day.